Today's lecture is by Mr. Geetansh Bamania, who is a mechanical engineering graduate from IIT Madras of the batch 2011. Title for today's talk is Lessons Learned While Going from 0 to 1 in Startup Journey. So it is my pleasure to introduce Geetansh here. Geetansh Bamania, he is an enthusiastic entrepreneur and dynamic personality who started his career in engineering from IIT Madras. By the age of 27, Geetansh is already a serial entrepreneur with prior startup forays in community learning and philanthropic crowdfunding. He has also worked with companies like Flipkart, Pepperfry and KPMG. Having worked in e-commerce companies in the past, Geetansh realized quite early that the e-commerce model would be difficult to turn into a profitable venture in discount-driven income-constrained economies. Renting or subscription seemed the only workable solution for the mass market of consumers in India. Geetansh, along with Ajay Nain, launched RentoMojo in December 2014 to provide frugal furnishing rental solutions to the ever-increasing population of migrants in major cities across India, looking for quick solutions for furnishing. He thus built a place where one can rent practically anything that they could have bought online with a mission to bring subscriptions as a new way of shopping. This ambitious startup genius has now revolutionized the way people meet their lifestyle needs by promoting and encouraging new age folks to start. It is my pleasure to welcome Geetansh today for the lecture, and now I invite him for giving his talk.
Hey, thanks, Poojan. Guys, if I'll just request if some of you can come a little forward, maybe I'm so sorry I was lazy enough to not bring a presentation. I would love to have more of an interactive session with you guys rather. No, I'm good. So thanks, guys. So mostly first years, second years, or so what's the average? So it's mostly a second years, folks, rather. Okay, great. So how many of you have heard of Amazon? Almost practically everyone. Do you buy from there? Okay, good. Why do you buy there? Okay, sure. So, does anybody know how when did Amazon start off? So it got started off back in the 1990s. I'll just give a quick intro. So, how Amazon built an e-commerce platform back in the 1990s, we're trying to do and build in a subscription commerce at various different asset classes. And I'll probably say, I'll just give you a quick backdrop about how we reached onto this. Just a quick gist about me. I graduated from here. I'm from a small town in Bhilai in Chhattisgarh. There either somebody becomes a doctor or engineer. These are the two channels that most of the folks have. So I graduated from here, and I post that I was a management consultant for a brief period at KPMG, and things started shaping up then. And that was the first learning that as a management consultant, just when I was just a few months old in the ecosystem as a fresh graduate, I was finding it very, very anxious to consult a lot of people. The first project that I had, I was practically sitting in front of somebody who's 20 years into the industry and knows much more about me, much more about the industry. So what I used to do was, being a consultant, I used to consult my brother to consult my clients, which was an irony in itself. So that was the problem that I was facing. To consult somebody, I was consulting somebody else. So I just thought, why not make it into a marketplace where two people can consult each other? So most of the problems is what I realized that comes from our own challenges at the end of the day, the daily challenges that we are facing. If we emulate a certain somebody else's problem, which might not be big enough to begin with, the depth of the market won't come. So that's one of the initial learnings. So what I did was I joined Flipkart to parallelly fund this project for a little while. It was called Click to Skill, which was essentially, if you guys have noticed, LinkedIn. So it was just a platform where two different profiles can consult each other over a 20-minute call, and the person who's giving the consultation will actually be paid for the time that he's giving the consultation on. We keep consulting several people across the lifespan, right? I mean, we need financial consulting, we need some sort of if you'll ask me something around the VC ecosystem or maybe about the startup ecosystem, I'll be able to consult for hours. So that was with that genesis is when I started the first venture. Incidentally, my parents were generous enough to give me some sort of a seed fund at that point in time. So without a prior background, it's very, very difficult to go out and even raise a couple of lakhs. So the first round generally happens from a couple of friends and family at the end of the day, and I'm pretty thankful till date, and like all of us, that we're very, very thankful to our families for supporting us in whatever we do. So they took they are practically the first angel investors into the first venture that I did. I floated that out. And that point of time is when there was no Udemy, there was no Byju's, there was no I'm not sure how many of these names you guys are aware of, but these are the P2P. This industry was called peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer knowledge sharing, so to say. So now in that peer-to-peer knowledge sharing, we have Udemy, Byju's, and Vedantus of the world. To at the other side of the spectrum in US, there were companies like Skillshare, those who were conducting peer-to-peer workshops. Everyone had something to share or something to teach on. So all these organizations, what essentially they were doing was they were picking out the experts and the learners, and they were making sure they're getting reunited at a certain platform. And that was a very nascent stage back in the 2012 days. So essentially, thinking that the market is good, I ventured into it. But what today's session, or maybe what I'll be telling you guys most about is I won't be the best person to tell you what to do. I mean, but maybe through my experience, I might just be able to bring out some points that what not to do. And that first venture was all about that. I was just a product and a tech guy. Venturing into and making a product thinking it's going to sell itself, which was one of the biggest difficulties, because without understanding who's your TG or where does your market lies and how quickly you will be able to capture at what cost, will really not give you a huge amount of depth as you start venturing or as you start scaling up. So that was the first aspect. I kind of ventured into too many products, thinking there's somebody in the P2P workshop space, P2P webcam sessions, and everything. So I kind of tried to build a product which will bundle all these services and give it out to a usual user. And the another thing that interestingly, we like to call these days like the dual-sided markets, which is the Ola and the Ubers of the today's, or the best example is, I would call it a Swiggy, which is a three-sided market today. That's another challenge. As you get in, you need to really identify who's your consumer. Is it in Ola's and Uber case, is it like the customer who's taking the car as a service, or is it like the driver? Because if you try and solve for one, you might just find a hindrance for the other. In a case of Swiggy, are you solving it for the logistics? Are you a logistical company, or are you a company who's providing the food, or are you the one who's making the food? So there are different companies with different sided markets, and I faced the same kind of issue when I started off. I had two spectrums of the business. One, somebody who comes with a certain idea who wants to learn, and the other side of the spectrum is somebody who's teaching it. So initially I formed the business for somebody who's teaching, and tried to acquire them, that, here's a beautiful platform for you that you can make a profile and, reach out to the target segment that you want to teach, and probably earn quick bucks. That's the kind of a messaging, and that's the kind of spends that we did to acquire these guys. So, and that's the kind of a product that we built. So interestingly, that went on for 1.5 years. We started making some sort of revenues. But the thing that was working, so absolutely the consultation or the call one was definitely not working. And the webcam was too early, I think, for the generation. Today we have a lot of webcam, peer-to-peer webcam sessions in terms of, Think Vidya and Udemy and Urban Pro and so on and so forth. But back then it was a little difficult. The market was not so much ready or ripe. But what was working was the peer-to-peer workshops. So I used to bring in some known personalities in the ecosystem who are experienced enough, some 10, 15 years, and so that I don't have to market them. The name itself will sell. Let's say, getting somebody like a Mr. Nilkani from Infosys. So somebody like him will be able to sell himself, but he's not going to come for the proceeds or the charity or the sales proceeds from the event. So what we started to derive was, and see what is happening here. It's all about listening where the market is going and trying to make the product. Most of the people, when they start off a product, the product is of their own imagination. And that's never a real product. Product is always a MVP. It's always a minimum viable product that you keep on building, listening to the consumer, or first identifying who's the consumer, and secondly, listening to the consumer and keep iterating. So that's what we did. I mean, I think that's when we ventured more into the workshop space, because that's where the revenues were coming. That's where people were liking it. And that's where even the supply and demand were meeting up. But we realized was Mr. Nilkani won't come if we tell him that I'm for one event I'm going to give you 1 lakh rupees. But he would have surely come if we would have told them, hey, the 1 lakh that we learn from this kind of an event, we'll give it to a charity of your cause. Now that was a breakthrough that we got, and that got me ventured into the philanthropic space. We started building some sort of revenues coming from here by bringing in a bunch of personalities who will sell itself, so that I don't have to spend on marketing budgets, and the product is self-sufficient because a lot of ticketing, it was a ticketing platform. So by doing that, I generated interest from this guy who was basically running this company called Web Chutney. That's one of that got acquired by a multinational called Detsu, which is a global advertising fund. So along with Harish Chawla of Network 18 and Deep Kalra of Make My Trip, who were the angel investors, we formulated a different portal. So we pivoted. I mean, in startup terms, pivot is more in terms of when you keep iterating the business model depending on where the customer is lying. So we did that. We ventured into a crowdfunding model there for the philanthropic space. I'm not sure how many of you would know a Kickstarter. Somebody made a campaign there. I don't see a lot of hands there. So basically, Kickstarter, you can go and crowdfund for your campaigns. If you're making if you're making a product, or if you're, let's say, making a wearable watch, so you can just go out there and put it out, and so that several people who like that kind of a tech product will be able to give you a lot of funds to actually do R&D and make that into a reality. So that Kickstarter is what we adopted as a model to fund for the NGOs. And initially, when we thought of getting out and start raising for the NGOs, we thought of driving it from the CSR budgets that most of the companies has, and those days government had mandated that 1 or 2% of the company's top line needs to be given for a certain CSR budget. But again, we realized that it's very difficult to drive a lot of funds from the CSR. So we started listening more towards the branding side. More towards the branding budgets is when we realized. So what essentially what we made was, we used to go all over India and drive a bunch of NGOs which aligns with a certain corporate's identity. So we used to go to a Google and say, hey, there's an NGO which is making computer lab for street children. Now that's suddenly certain something that's like a story that Google will be able to sell as a brand. And he'll be able to give us a certain amount of budgets that we can give it out to an NGO, and essentially making a crowdfunding aspect there. So essentially, if you go and click on the platform, if you like it, maybe Google will give a $10. If you pay a $10, Google will give $100 and match it up, and essentially NGO will get 110. So this is all data-driven dashboards that we started building for the brand, so that we get more and more capital. And essentially, that was the point where we built a certain scalability in the business, and we had an acquisition offer from one of the biggest MNCs. The team didn't go for it, but at the same time, I ventured out, and I started heading the private label arm of the business at Pepperfry. That's one of the big furniture online players. And very frankly, in this whole journey that I said, I've moved a lot of cities and frankly burned a lot of my pockets in terms of relocations. So this time I thought that, I don't want to buy furniture. And I'll rather rent it out from a local guy. Because, I'm thinking of 11 months, 12 months tenure, and, I'll rather take it on a rental basis rather than buying at the end of the day. And whereas very, thankfully, the kind of responsibility that I was at, I was handling the P&L of India. We were already at several, $1 million in terms of revenues, in terms of the furniture sales, and I was able to take it to a much bigger number, taking care of the whole catalog, marketing, warehousing, and logistics, and the whole category piece of it. It's a very, very just a maths and data-driven activity that you keep figuring out the touch points, and you make sure your category is growing at the end of the day. But that gave me a lot of insights into the economics of buying. I mean, I would say right from the prehistoric times, we have been very fixated with the idea of ownership. If I have to ask anybody here, maybe, what's ownership for you? If I have to ask, what do you mean by ownership? Anybody, do they have mics by any chance? If anybody can answer what's the ownership means, what do you mean when you say I own this product? Maybe you answer. So any wild guesses of what can be a potential ownership is? I mean, what do you mean by ownership? You bought the product to use it for a certain time period, and what? You guys have some coffee? Okay, so basically the biggest chunk of what maximum responses that I've gotten for the ownership aspect is nobody comes back and says that I own this product lifelong. Everyone says I own it for a 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years period. And if you own it for a certain time period, basically you have bought it at a certain price, you scrapped it at a certain different value, and you used it for a certain time period. If you have these 3 variables, you can always construct a monthly subscription plan that'll have the same kind of a cash flows or lesser, which is what essentially we did. So in the market, just to give you an example, a wardrobe which you can get in the market for 10,000 bucks, we started giving that at 500 or 400 rupees monthly rental. So if somebody is coming with 11-month or 12-month kind of a runway in his mind, because you are a migrant population, you are coming off from various different colleges and you're settling in a city, your first rental contract in an apartment is going to be around 11 months, 12 months. So your visibility or the line of thought is around 11, 12 months. So people started opting for it fairly naturally. It just came very, very naturally to them. Rather than spending at 10,000 bucks, they thought, hey, why not? Let me just give it out at 500 rupees a month, and I'll have the access to the lifestyle rather than pay 10,000 and own it, which was any which way a vague concept in itself. Ownership is a very vague concept in itself. And it's essentially for us, we are buying at a very cheap cost. That same 10,000 wardrobe, what the e-commerce companies can buy at is potentially at a 5,000 or 6,000 rupees. So essentially, I'll be able to find that differential because I can buy it cheap. A usual individual can't. So when I buy it at such a cheap price, I can give you the benefits of the differential in terms of very low affordable cost. And that, very frankly, changes the way we operate in terms of ownership, because right from the early days, that's how the selling is done. I manufacture it at 100 rupees value, and I sell it at let's say by a top up of 20 bucks or 30 bucks or 40 bucks. So a certain something that is getting manufactured at 100 by the laws of traditional laws needs to be sold at 120 or 140 to make a certain profit out of it. We changed that. We eliminated that margin, and we said, hey, look, we eliminate that margin and we'll pass on the benefits of that in terms of lucrative rentals. So just imagine now today what we started doing was something, you're new to the city, you're maybe in the first early years of your working life, or maybe in the probably 6 years ahead in your working life. At various different life stages, whenever you want to furnish your apartment at the end of the day, for which you need to spend around 1.5 lakhs, we give it out at 2,500 rupees a month. And that's a subscription that you sign up with us for the next 14 months or 15 months. But unlike a EMI that you can take, I mean, people can question why not take it up on an EMI. Unlike an EMI, here somebody has the flexibility to get out of it whenever they want. So we're cheaper than EMI, we're more convenient than EMI, and it's like a non-commitment EMI that we offer on various different asset classes. So that's how we begin, and once we started, acting upon it, a lot of people started saying, "How will you be able to scale this up?" And I think we were just 4 months into it, and we had deployed a couple of lakhs of inventory into the market, and these VCs and then the venture capitalists started asking, "Today you're deploying a couple of lakhs in the market. Slowly and gradually, it's going to be several crores per month." And it's going to be several hundred crores if you'll start adding, let's say, 20,000 subscribers a month. How will you be able to scale that up? Just to put things in perspective, nobody can raise 100 crores capital in terms of equity and put that in terms of deployment. So we were out of money. I mean, seriously, we had a couple of days of capital left. We started this off from a 3 BHK back in 2014, and we had only a couple of some amount of runway left. And we realized the biggest capex that is forming a burn in our cash flows is the burn that we are putting into the assets. And if that goes out, we'll be fairly well. So we converted that capex into opex, and we started basically telling a usual folk like maybe HNI, or we started reaching out to our uncles rather, who used to invest in mutual funds and so on and so forth, and ask them to actually own all these assets and lease it out to us, and so that we can sublease it out to the consumers. I know it's pretty hard words, but you can, I'll open up for a Q&A. But essentially, you can just imagine somebody is giving me out at a monthly rental, and I'm subleasing it out to the consumers. That made this model very, very scalable. I think globally there is no company who's been able to crack this kind of a financing arm at the back end. And the reason we have been able to do that is because we work like a quasi bank. We have a lot of mining tools that understands who you are as an individual. What do you write on social media? What company do you work in? What sort of a designation you are at? So there's different kind of what sort of a society do you live in? So there are different kind of variables that we club in and crunch to figure out what's a decent credit score for a certain individual. And as a bank, we, instead of giving you a loan, we give out a couple of assets. And that's the idea, I think that's the idea, to form up a space where tomorrow, form up a future where a certain individual will, let's say, pay around $5,000-10,000 a month, and he'll have access to the whole umbrella of lifestyle. He'll have clothes, he'll have furniture, he'll have appliances, he'll have bikes, he'll have cars, he'll have everything which he would not have paid for. He'll just take a monthly income which is coming towards him. That is his monthly income. The average person in India earns around 40 to 50,000 or 30,000 in terms of monthly income. That's the average person. And that's what we realize now, that out of the 1.3 billion population today, we have only about 700 bank accounts. We have only about a 450 million working population, just 450. That's not even half there. And out of that 450, there are only about 100 to 150 million in terms of smartphone penetration. And that's scary. Only about 150. Out of that 150, only about 25 million those who have transacted with Flipkart till now. That's one of the biggest e-commerce giants that we have. After spending huge amount of awareness budgets altogether for the past 5 years. And that has a reason, because as a country, we're not there yet in terms of the affordability pattern. We're not there yet in terms of the GDP per capita. And there's a lot of, global macro levers that defines the GDP per capita. So we're not there yet. And that's the reason why, e-commerce is very much a discount-driven game, because the same 20-25 million, those who keep buying, keep coming back to the same websites over and over again. And what is there to lure you at the end of the day other than discounts? That's the only thing which is left out, because there's no loyalty otherwise, because I don't have capital. If I'm buying or if I'm acquiring a certain user at $100, and he's only providing me $10 as a revenue, he'll essentially have to come back to me 120 times or 12 times to actually, for me to make some sort of a profit and get my marketing budgets back. And that was the largest struggle that we are trying to solve. which most of the banks are trying to do in terms of EMIs, killing that affordability and the convenience gap. We just feel we have a fairly better solution, which is cheaper than EMI, convenient than EMI, and more commitment. So I think the service that we are about to launch is something that you guys will be able to relate to. I can see a lot of blank faces, but I hope you guys like bikes, let's say. So instead of buying an Activa for $70,000, now you'll be able to rent it out, a bike, at 2,500 or 3,000 rupees a month. So that's the kind of access to transport is what we'll be able to give you, instead of you going out in autos and Ubers and Olas and still be able to spend around a 6,000 to 9,000 in your working life. So that's the kind of access or subscription economy is what, as a company we're trying to create. We are the evangelists of it. We think subscription is a theory that has higher lifetime values of a user. That means in the subscription commerce, a certain user is attaching with us for longer periods rather than in e-commerce, I just buy and get off. So the subscription theory can be applied to different asset classes, and we have chosen furniture, appliances, bikes and cars to begin with, and we'll encompass your whole lifestyle so that you just pay a 5,000, 10,000 or maybe max to max 12, 15,000 a month, and you'll have clothes, bikes, furniture, appliances, and tomorrow several other categories that people are not even thinking of at this point in time. So just to give you a quick glimpse of subscription as a theory, people have started giving shaving foams in terms of subscription. So there's a company which we recently got in $1 billion exit because every month you use a shaving cream, so they started giving shaving cream as a subscription. There's sock subscription which is happening. There's going to be clothing subscription that will happen. This will just slowly and gradually mutate into a better version of ownership. So that's the subscription commerce, guys, that we are trying to build in as RentoMojo. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Hello. You said that your model was you would lease the furniture out and then sublease it out again.
Right.
Aren't you just a middleman here? What was the margin at which you were leasing it out firstly, and what is the margin you were giving it out? Won't the person you're getting it from first realize that he's being shortchanged?
Shortchanged in the sense? Sorry?
You're charging a higher rate for renting out his piece of furniture.
Right.
And he's okay with it?
Yeah, these are typically the banks. So the oldest profession that we have since the decades is being a middleman at the end of the day. Marketplaces came into the picture back in Greece in 1600s. So that's where we are, and from the marketplaces we eventually evolved into some sort of a shopping platform or a retail platform, which just had an extension of you going to a shop and possibly you're not getting the variety and you still were buying. So there were marginal improvements that kept on happening from the marketplaces. Coming back to your margin and the gross margins, if I have to say, the banks don't take a consumer call today. That's the market opportunity. As a bank will not give you lease financing for your furniture and appliances, because that's the business that they don't understand, because they have to get into the understanding of the furniture and appliances to take a lease call. They can understand you and give you a loan to buy that. And that's different from giving you a lease, because in the case of lease, somebody is taking a call on the residual value of the product as well. So since they can't do that, somebody has to come in between and do that for them. So that I can take a quasi call on you, understand who you are, where do you work, and take a credit call whether you'll be able to pay me back, and essentially make a huge gross margin in between. And thankfully we're one of those companies in India which are at very, very healthy gross margins because of that, because our cost of financing is very, very low. Whereas because of the maths that I just told you, that a 100 rupees product which is in the market for 160, I'm taking a lease capital on 100, I'm able to eliminate that margin and able to build in very, very high yields on my the deployed capex that I do. Let's say I give you furniture and appliances which is worth 20,000 in let's say a 40-50,000 in the market. That's like a bedroom package for you. That's like a bed, wardrobe, mattress and a study table and a chair, and let's say a TV. So that you can have access to a quality lifestyle. You can just hang out with your friends whenever they come on weekends and so on and so forth. You can at least have pizzas around. So that thing, if you'll have to buy out from the market, that'll be around a 40-45 grand. Whereas we buy it at 20. and our lease capital is on 20, which is around a 14% on 20,000.
You get it at 20.
Because that's the retail, that's the traditional laws that, you know, I manufacture at 100 and I sell it off at 160.
And you take control of manufacturing?
Yes, we don't take control of manufacturing. Nobody takes control of manufacturing. Manufacturing is always contracted by the Pepperfries and the Urban Ladders and the Flipkarts of the world as well. It's just contracted and given to somebody who manufactures it for you and gives you at a manufacturing cost. You put a gross margin over it and sell it off at a certain price. So since we don't have to do that because we're not in the selling business, we can eliminate that and give you much better lucrative rentals. So your payback, let's say even if I start giving it that at 2,000 rupees a month, your payback for the same 40,000, because if you'll go out on the market, you'll be able to buy that same package that I just told you for 40,000. So if you'll divide 40,000 by 2,000, that's like a good number of months, right? Whereas for me, the payback is quite early, and that's where I make very high margins.
Hello, sir.
Hey.
Sir, about furnitures particularly, if I want to buy rent anything like a bed for 12 months, I can get a bed for 12 months from OLX, from second-hand bed.
Right.
You are not providing new beds, right?
Right.
So I can get it from second-hand bed, cheaper
sure.
rates, and I'll sell it out after 12 months on
Sure.
the same site like OLX.
Sure.
That's a kind of different kind of strategy, different kind of like method. But yeah, it's also good for me because
Sure.
I can save money and I can.
So two things: we don't give out the second hand. We give out the first hand beds. These are some brand new products that you get. If it's coming as a second hand, we lower the price for you. Point A. Second point, what you just described is three variables that I just said. You bought a certain second hand furniture, you used it for 12 months and you scrapped it off. That's what you said. So you use three variables. If you use these three variables, you can always come back to the same the monthly price. Let's say you bought the second hand bed at 10,000 rupees from OLX, and you bought and you sold it out at 2,000 rupees. You essentially spent 8,000 for 12 months. You essentially spent 8,000 for 12 months to use it. If you divide 12,000 by 8, that's around 1.5 thousand. What I'll give you this bed for, or the same second hand bed for, is around 1,000 rupees a month. So that's the infra that we are building. Where do you source the furniture from is not a moat for us. It's not something that we are solving for. We're solving for a better economics or a better variables than the three. Furniture or appliances and products can come from anywhere, and we'll be present there to give you the same kind of a solution tomorrow. You're buying from OLX, you're buying from Flipkart, you're buying from RentoMojo, you buy from anywhere. At the end of the day, you'll be just given something which is absolutely more convenient and more affordable than actually paying such a huge upfront cost. And just imagine, right now, the most of the consumers, and specifically, there's a unit economics question that keeps coming back to me. You're thinking of one wardrobe right now, or one bed. The moment you start getting into a 1 BHK where you need a bed, mattress, wardrobe, TV, fridge, washing machine, you're looking at a spend of around a 60, 70 grand and 80 grand minimum. And as soon as that hits in, our upfront cost as a value proposition kicks in. Whether somebody wants to spend such a huge upfront cost in the early years of their working profession. Whereas even in 80,000, the unit economics will definitely work. The same example that I just gave. On 80,000, that will also work. That you can buy something at 80,000 and scrap it off at, let's say, at 10,000 bucks. Essentially, you're making 70,000. You spend 70,000 for 12 months. You divide that and you will have the monthly subscription that I'll charge you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. So I see a lot of operational challenges here, and in terms of the risk mitigation, how you
Right.
plan to do that, because typically, in the culture that we are into,
Right.
if you are talking about the asset class, which would have 20, 30 times your monthly subscription charges. If there's a damage, there's a spoilage,
Right.
breakage, etc. How do you take care of in our situation? What kind of operational challenges and risk mitigation that you have in place? Because this is something which is a big issue going forward.
So, so of course, we're not talking about mobile phones or smartphones that has some sort of a technological default that gets into a repair and maintenance. These are bulky furniture and appliances, for which the repair and maintenance have been solved for earlier, and there are certain tats and timelines for everything in terms of repair and maintenance as well. So when we actually give you a price, that has a built-in AMC cost from the brands. So they in turn come up and repair it for you on our behalf at the end of the day. And of course, in the longer run, we are building that infra so that on their behalf, let's say in a case of furniture, we have our own carpenters, those who solve it for you. In the case of bikes, we'll have our own service centers that you can reach it out to. So it's all built in the cost. So just imagine on a 20,000, just to give you a fair share of example. Appliances industry today is at 11% gross margin, whereas we are closer to about a 60-70% in terms of gross margin. That's a very heavy spread that none of the companies in the ecosystem have today. And once you get into a business with such huge gross margins, you can actually account for the repair and maintenance and the smaller costs like these.
Payment default, recovery mechanism, those also.
So yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you asked this because that tells me that so you have rightly understood that we work like a quasi bank, and if we work like a quasi bank, there's going to be defaults, there's going to be NPAs. I can't give my products right now at the maturity to somebody who's staying at Dharavi in Mumbai. I'm not sure how many people are from Bombay, but I won't be able to take a credit call on that guy. Even if he has the credit intent to pay me back, or if he has the bank balance or the bank statement to pay me back. So at all times, since we are building a consumer business, we have to take a call between the risk and the experience part of the business. Let's just say, if compared to me asking just which company do you work for and asking you a bank statement, it's going to be experience hindrance for you. So we always have to take a good measure between whether we are a very experience oriented company, but not at the cost of bleeding in terms of risk. So NPAs are there, but we effectively make that very, very convenient for you and don't ask you a lot of questions, which is why a lot of scraping, I should not be saying this, but we've actually scraped through the professional and the social profiles. We actually scrape through, what a certain somebody, if I know your name, I'll be able to type it on Google and will be able to lead on to various different threads. So that's what our bots do at the end of the day, to figure out what's a certain social and professional profile means. And then post that, we have a bunch of other documents. And thankfully, with the advent of eKYC and the UPI coming in, that's going to be solved at a different level altogether.
Hi, my name is Nihal.
Hi, Nihal.
Yeah, I think know me because I was interning at RentoMojo like 2 months.
Oh
back.
yes, so sorry. Yeah.
I personally know Geetansh, so I'll just share my experience. One experience that first day I went to office, so my manager.
I hope it's good, otherwise
yeah,
you stop right now.
Okay, so I was early to the office because it was the first day, but we really have a flexible timing at RentoMojo. So I was introduced to Geetansh and I didn't know who he was. I didn't know he was the CEO of the company. Okay, sorry for that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, then.
So I work in my gunjis and my t-shirts.
Okay, so he was a very nice guy. He was a very friendly person, and so I was sitting in his seat, and there was a place where he usually sits in the office. If you remember, the old office.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was sitting in his seat, and I didn't know that, and he asked me, I asked him if he wanted to sit, but I didn't know that. I didn't know then he was the CEO of the company, so I asked him if he wanted to sit here. So he said, "Be comfortable." And I mean, I was an intern, and he went and sat on a bean back there. So that's the kind of man that who he was speaking. So coming to my question, so I see all these e-commerce, Flipkart, whether it be Flipkart, Amazon, everything, they tend to push their apps or smartphone apps more. So you book something, you buy something on a
website, you get something extra, like extra discount on the app.
Right.
So why is that? Like, why do you push more on the apps? So even RentoMojo has app now.
So that has three reasons why it's. I won't be able to scrape your portal to understand in terms of competition what you're doing. I mean, in the app, I can change and I can customize and personalize as per you, because I can give you views that you want to see as a consumer. So I can personalize the app. And because there's to convert a certain user, that goes in several different stages. A lead has come, and we need to nurture it along the way, depending on what sort of a profile you are and what sort of a life stage you are at, whether you are 7 days into the process, 12 days into the process, and it's all data. I mean, you need to really figure out and capture all your touch points at the end of the day to even figure out, are you a repeat consumer, and what sort of a repeat consumer, how many days it has been, what are the other websites that you're browsing at this point in time, are those the part of your consideration set? I mean, as the gentleman said there, he can buy it out from OLX and quicker. If he would have been coming on to my portal again from OLX and quicker, I'll showcase a certain page which is talking more on the quality aspects of a certain product. That how taking a second hand product is going to be really bad for a consumer, or maybe start talking about the relocation costs that somebody doesn't imagine while buying a certain product. That 12 months down the line, if he has to move around, he'll have to move around with a bulky asset, and there's again a spend. So personalization can definitely happen. B, on the application, I'll be able to send you personalized notifications, which has come on browser as well in terms of browser notifications, but app has a certain tendency of higher click-through rates at the app notification. So that's definitely two of the biggest reasons. And the third one, where why so many people are interested in app is how when pager came in, that had a certain rate of adoption. Then came in the maybe the computer and the laptops, and that also had a certain rate of adoption, but and which was higher than pager. Then when the internet came in, that has a higher rate of adoption within the users. Now smartphone sells like water. If people might not have water, but they'll have smartphones. So that rate will quickly encompass and will spread like a virus everywhere. I mean, everyone, smartphones are getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper by the day. And everyone will have access to a smartphone, not necessarily the data today. And once you start kicking in with the data and the smartphone, and you have that, kind of a combo with you, you can certainly imagine it's going to be a smartphone age that we'll be in. So that's why people are pressing more towards having an app and bound you there, because I can get you hooked. Although there are several companies that are getting built over the layer and say that since India cripples with low data usage, why not have just one app which can solve the problems of all the other apps? So there's several debates that can possibly happen in this direction, but I would say the app is certainly the way forward. But there are a couple of theories which are coming up that mobile websites can also play a huge role versus the apps. So either of the two. At the end of the day, it's going to be the mobile which I'll start converting on the platforms.
You mentioned about being a quasi-bank kind of a performance. Now,
Right.
a lot of microfinance companies and payment banks are also coming in. So
Right.
since they can also move into this area, so where you see how do you take the lead, and how can you have the no entry barriers? So how can you create a lead or the edge whereby they don't enter into your area? Because
That's
there are
like
all
a
the
classic
possibilities.
example. I mean, when Pepperfry came in, or Ladder came in, or Flipkart came in, everyone started thinking shop's going to vanish, or people started saying that the Mukesh, the Ambanis and the Bianis of the world will get into because it's just a quick switch. Or when Pepperfry came in, when they were not making any kind of revenues, Godrej was at 1,000 crores in terms of annual revenues. But it's just when you build a product, it's not everybody's job. You iterate for the consumer, and you would have learned a lot of things when you're making an industry at the end of the day. Which is why the reason people tend to acquire all these bigger giants like Bianis tend to acquire companies those have already built. Because it comes with a certain amount of nuance, and that's what we are learning. We have spent 2.5 years spending huge amount in terms of acquiring the right data and building that infra. We just listen to our consumers, not the competition. And that infra, it's very difficult to copy. And to just quickly tell you a point that, everyone thinks this will happen, but just when somebody is just starting off an industry, it's pretty small. For a giant who's already there, already all these micro finance banks and all that, they have deployments worth 32 billion, 35 billion, and our industry just looks pretty small at this point in time, so nobody will really take a bet there. So it's always like a chicken and egg that certain somebody is. So banks will definitely not get in because they understand the lending game that has only two variables, the principal and the interest. We have several different variables. We are entering into microfinance in a way. So that's the new realm of we'll start giving a competition to the EMI in the longer run, and I think that's the way to go forward. Cool. Yeah.
I did my intern at OYO. I was in Bangalore for 2 months. So OYO is coming up with packages, same like they are giving rooms and inbuilt furniture packages, studio stays in.
Right.
Do you see that as a competition with Rento?
So, in fact, we supply to these guys because if they have to come up with furniture and appliances to scale up, they need to find the financing of those assets, which we have solved for. So, in turn, OYO, Nestaway, Zenith, bunch of people are there in this ecosystem. Those who try to give us this is called the integrated experience. So everyone wants to give that, but they're not in the battle of solving an affordability or the problem that we are solving. They are trying to solve a problem that once you are into a new city, you really need a quick fix in terms of staying somewhere, and that's what they provide you. The biggest problem is that the furniture and appliances are given by us at the end of the day. They don't even have their own furniture because that's not scalable. We are solving for the scalability aspect of it because that's our domain. So they'll always be dependent on us for the furniture and appliances. Otherwise, their consumers will not come. I would feel that's a very small market because that lies. You'll get into that kind of option when you are 22 to 28 years old, when you're living with your friends. But the moment you want to get married, or maybe you want to get out of that bandwagon, you would want a space of your own, and that's what none of the integrated experience providers provide that today. So it's a very limited space, and we are not solving for that. We are ready to help them in terms of the furniture and appliances, and we're giving it out to them. We're helping, in fact, Nestaway and OYO up to a certain extent, but we thought that we don't want to take exposure because as a bank, I don't want to take a heavy exposure. That's what happened with ICICI giving it to Malia, right? I mean, you took a huge exposure on one entity, which kind of crippled you at the end of the day. So that's what is keeping us away from taking any kind of call on businesses today. So we're working a consumer brand. We want you to actually have an access to a good lifestyle at a good affordable cost, rather than a business to have that kind of an access.
I saw the site that there are packages for bedrooms and all. So you think that we have a place and then they'll come for the packages. If you integrate all this with the rooms also,
Right.
Are you thinking the RentoMojo is RentoMojo going towards that also?
So that's just one channel for us to that's just one channel for us to have a larger deployment or get the consumers from that channel. But that's not the only way for us to figure out. There'll be times when you have your own rental apartment because you want to stay with the friends of your own. Let's say even in that stage, you have a couple of friends of your own and you want to, have your own space at the end of the day. The biggest problem with all those integrated experiences, the owners are not so, comfortable with a bunch of 7 or 8 people, staying like a PG in their own house. So that is what they are finding it difficult to scale.
You had mentioned that even they're giving shaving foam as in this model, but that's a perishable good. How does that work?
It's like that perishable product that you have it every month and month. So if I have
Cost
to make
per shave is going to remain the same, correct? I mean,
it won't.
assuming you use It's not like you're going to stop using shaving foam at any one point of time.
No. So it's coming from a cost of acquisition. So just imagine there can be 3 companies selling the shaving foam. What's the loyalty that you have towards one shaving foam? And if I have to always acquire you so that you buy from my product, I'm losing a certain marketing spend over and over again. What I'll do is I'll acquire you for the next 14 months and pass that in terms of lower pricing. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thanks guys. Thank you so much.